That's right. Bear down, Bears fans. It's time for another edition of the Chicago Bears podcast, Bears Banter, powered by Second City Gridiron. Bill Zimmerman is with you, and we have week one upon us. It is finally here. Regular season football since that last time the Bears played and gloriously beat the Green Bay Packers, another division rival on the horizon, the Minnesota Vikings. And we are going to talk about it. We are going to talk about getting ready for week one here and moving forward into this season. If you missed our big season preview, make sure you check it out. Last week had a great conversation with Aaron Lemming. We do it every year. Make sure you go on to the the Second City Gridiron podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you check that out. And of course, all the other great content by Second City Gridiron. And of course, you're checking out today's episode, which is featuring David Kaplan. Yes, the Cap Man from ESPN 1000. He is going to be by here in just a little bit. Excited to get his opinions on this team and where it is headed. But let's jump in here. And I don't want to mirror exactly what we talked about last week with Aaron. So let's get it a little more specific to early in the season, not just the Vikings game, but the first few games of the season, what I'm looking for, what to expect, and where I think this team is headed. Of course, Ben Johnson met with the media on Tuesday and, made captain's announcements. I like that the Bears have 5 captains, and then they'll be rotating a captain in. I think that's a good setup for this year. But more importantly, he announced Braxton Jones would be the team's starting left tackle. And I don't think that's a surprise at this point. I think it was honestly the only move you could make. And the hope here, is that Braxton Jones is his old self. That's all we need Braxton Jones to be, is his old self, a pretty good average left tackle. And if the Bears can get that out of him, he's going to be excellent as basically the worst offensive lineman on the Chicago Bears front 5 there. But we can't have the Braxton Jones that we've seen in preseason. And I understand it's preseason. We can't read too much into it. And that's all true. But just the way he was moving, the technique we saw, the flaws, the thin legs, which, already hurts an anchor that's not great with him to begin with. These are the things that have to get cleaned up and have to be better for Braxton Jones. But that still leaves overall excitement for this offensive line. Now, I have concerns about the depth. I don't know exactly who's going to be the guys that you're really, truly going to be able to trust coming off that back 5, because they've got 5 bench guys that are currently offensive linemen, with Karan Amagaji making this team. Theo Benedict is a great story as an undrafted free agent and making this roster, probably has a better future as a guard. But if Braxton Jones gets hurt against the Vikings, how much faith do you truly have in Theo Benedict stepping in and neutralizing most of the time, not all the time, we know that's not going to happen, but most of the time, neutralizing like a Jonathan Grenard? I don't have confidence in that. And I love that Theo made this roster. I think it's a great story, and it's great to see how much he's improved since last season. But again, you still have to look at big picture. If Ozzie Trapillo came in, I think he might be able to hold his own a little bit against pretty good players. Obviously, the Micah Parsons types are going to dominate a guy like Ozzie Trapillo. He might be able to hold his own, but I think they're going to keep Ozzie exclusively over on the right side. I don't feel, and again, I haven't heard this from anyone on the Bears staff or anyone with any nuggets or anything, I don't feel like the Bears have a swing tackle this year. I think the Bears have a Theo Benedict backup left tackle, Ozzie Trapillo backup right tackle situation that they're doing this year. So I don't think they have a true swing tackle that's going to play both positions. I could be wrong about that, but that's what I see happening. Now, could I see something where if Braxton Jones gets hurt, they swing Darnell Wright over there and move Ozzie Trapillo to right tackle? Maybe they try something like that, because if we're going to talk about left tackle here, let's talk about the future of left tackle. And I know I said I'm going to focus on the first few games, and I am, but I do think this left tackle situation is interesting because obviously the Bears have a number 1 pick next year. What direction are the Bears going to go with that pick? If you want to look in terms of where this roster is weakest, things like safety and linebacker next year are going to be really thin. They don't have a safety under contract for 2026 right now. Tremaine Edmonds is almost certainly going to get cut. You probably don't think you can trust Noah Sewell or Ruben Hippolyte. I certainly don't see it right now that they can step in and be a starting linebacker. So you can look at that. But again, if the Bears are picking in the first round, somewhere between 15 and 22, I think that's fair to say that that's probably where they're going to be this year, just missing the playoffs or just getting into the playoffs. I think you probably, again, if there's a stud safety or something sitting there that they want to get, okay. But if you're going to look at premium positions, the position there the Bears could take is left tackle or edge. I don't think running back is the right way for the team to go. I know we all love Jeremiah Love. He's an excellent running back. But again, I don't think that's a first round move the Bears can make next year because I just don't trust this edge room. I really don't. I've talked about it multiple times. Unless Austin Booker really comes into his own this year and the Bears are like, this guy's a starting edge in 2026, that can change your perception a little bit on that room. But right now, I just think they need to add more beef into that edge room. And I think that's the smarter move. They can draft a left tackle next year, but that is a lot of investment into tackle, being you took Darnell Wright, you took Ozzie Trapillo, you took Karan Amagaji. Now you're taking a left tackle in round one. A lot of investment into the tackles to get not that much back in return at that point. And at that point, then you're almost committing Ozzie Trapillo to be a backup, or you're letting Darnell Wright walk. It makes some interesting things. So reason I bring that up is if the Bears, if it comes down to Dan Rochar, if he does not think Ozzie Trapillo can play left tackle, and maybe that's just a rookie thing, and he plans on having him play left tackle next season. But if he doesn't think Ozzie Trapillo can play left tackle, then they need to find a left tackle. And it's not going to be Theo Benedict. All right. It's a nice story. His arms are too short. He doesn't have the length needed to really be a left tackle in this league. His best chances to become a starter in this league is going to be on the interior at guard. That means Darnell Wright has to move to the left side. That's the situation there. So I do think the tackle situation is interesting and something to watch early to see how these guys look, because it's a puzzle that you have to start putting together for 2026. And with that tackle room, I think you need to start looking at it early. So the announcement of Braxton Jones to start at left tackle is no surprise there, but keeping a close eye on Braxton Jones, keeping a close eye on Darnell Wright, and if those guys miss any time, how the Bears manage the tackle room is going to be really interesting. Now, going into these first few weeks on offense and on defense, let's take a look at this. On the offensive side of the ball, I have a feeling they're going to start a little slow. I think there was still a little too much inconsistency. I think there's still a lot of room to grow. I think they threw a lot at Caleb Williams. I think they're going to pare it back now, and they're going to look at what Caleb does really well, what he's really grasped well in this offense. I think we'll see things that are a little smoother than we did in preseason, but I expect bumps. Maybe it's the Bears fan in me that we just can't have anything nice. And I'm not saying Ben Johnson's offense is going to stink. I expect this offense to get better and better. Development isn't linear, but I do expect we're going to see, an upward trend throughout the season, and that the offense we see, in early December is significantly better than the offense we see in September. With other veteran teams, that's not necessarily the case. You don't necessarily think the Bengals offense in November or December is going to be much better than it is in September. These guys have been together. They know the system. There's not as much room to grow. The Bears, I think it's going to start a little slow. That's my hunch on this. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Bears score 34 against the Vikings, but I think it's going to be a little slow. We're going to see some really good things about the offense. We're going to see him stack good plays. We're going to see some scoring drives. We're going to see a lot of promise from Caleb Williams. We're going to see him playing in structure. We're going to see a lot of it, but I just don't think we're going to see a perfect cohesive unit here just yet. I just think there's too many questions based on what we saw in August, what we heard in August, for them to be in excellent shape with the offense coming right out of the gate. I think we're going to see kind of an interesting mix of who's getting the ball here. We talk about the top 6 weapons, receiving weapons, putting DeAndre Swift aside. with the 4 wide receivers and the 2 tight ends. It's going to be interesting to see who gets a bulk of the targets early on. You didn't hear DJ Moore's name a lot. You've heard DJ Moore's getting lined up in the backfield a decent amount. They're going to maybe try and Deebo Samuel him a little bit here this season. It'll be interesting to see what they do with DJ. Obviously, I think you're going to see Moore's targets increase, and he'll be a bigger part of the offense here in week 1 moving forward here early. But I think Olamide Zaccheaus is also going to be a pretty big part of this offense. I'm not saying he's getting 10, 12 targets a game. And I think it's one of those things where maybe Zaccheaus is a bigger part of the offense early on than he is later, because I think this is a guy that Ben Johnson can trust, and therefore Caleb Williams can trust, while guys like Luther Burden and Roman Dunze and Colston Loveland, the young guys, kind of get their feet under them in this system. I think a guy like Zaccheaus, a veteran who's been in a few different systems, is going to be able to step in and do well right away. So kind of those like 4 catches, 50-yard type games, maybe a touchdown here or there for the first month of the season. I think you're going to see Zaccheaus probably a bigger part of the offense than people expect. I could be wrong about that. There's no guarantees that that's accurate, but that's the way I kind of see this. With the tight ends, I don't know what to expect from Cole Kmet this year. I wish I had a better answer for people on that. Obviously, I think he's going to be, it's weird. I say he's a lesser part of the offense, but he was practically not part of the offense at all last season. So I think what we expect, what a lot of Bears fans expect Cole Kmet to be as a part of this offense, like what he was in 2023, 2022, I don't think we're going to see that Cole Kmet. I do think you're going to see a Cole Kmet who will be a reliable target. He'll be a dump-off guy. He'll have a pretty high catch rate. And that's what we're going to see from Cole Kmet. We're not going to see him. I know he had that beautiful seam shot with Caleb Williams in the preseason. I don't know if we're going to see as much of that from Cole. We'll see it from time to time. I think obviously they're going to try and use Loveland more in that role. But again, how close are these guys ready to step in and be really good week 1, week 2 of the regular season as young guys picking up a new system? That's going to be interesting to see. So early on, I think maybe you see a little bit more from the veterans, a little DJ, a little Zaccheaus, maybe a little Kmet, because again, he is a veteran, and some DeAndre Swift out of the backfield, which gets us to the backfield. To me, I think this is Swift and Monangai. Someone asked me, should I draft Monangai or Roschon Johnson in fantasy leagues? To me, that's Monangai. Again, I think he's the clear RB2. I think Swift's going to get the bulk of the action there in the backfield, but I think Monangai is going to be the guy. And if Monangai plays well, I think you're going to see him starting getting more and more of the share in the backfield. But is he going to play well? How is he going to pass block? How is he going to do all the things that you need to do as a running back to fit in Ben Johnson's offense? Monangai looked like a good pass blocker in college from what I saw, but did not look good in those short amount of preseason reps he did have, of course, before he got hurt. So assuming Monangai's back, how does he handle picking up blitzers and picking up pass rushers and things he needs to do there? That's going to be really determined as to how much he plays early on. If he struggles with that, I think Roschon Johnson will do a better job in that category. And again, that's assuming both these guys are healthy. We don't have exactly a clear idea on that, other than the fact that they aren't on the IR. Travis Homer is on the IR. So we'll see what happens here. But that gets us to DeAndre Swift and what that you can expect out of him this season. I think this is his last season in Chicago. I think the Bears, Ben Johnson specifically, is going to rework this running back room in 2026. Like, if you look at the Bears here in terms of how they are built, this offensive line, other than maybe figuring out left tackle, if they don't have it figured out right now, offensive line's pretty set for next year. They can draft a day 2 or a day 3 lineman and put him in the developmental chain if they want, but they don't have to worry about that. Tight end, as long as they're comfortable paying Cole Kmet, they don't have to worry about tight end next year. They don't have to worry about wide receiver next year. They've got enough young talent there and enough talent under contract. The running back room, you can get out of Swift's, you can get out of Swift's contract. You probably are going to lose Roschon. I assume the Bears are probably going to cut ties with him unless he takes a lot of steps forward this year. Maybe they like him sticking around as an RB4, kind of the Travis Homer role, and they let Homer go after this year. But I think you're going to see at least 2 new faces in that running back room, including a new RB1 in 2026. But in 2025 for DeAndre Swift, he is the guy kind of by default. Now, again, does Ben Johnson like him? How is that relationship going to go after it? Both these guys like, oh, everything was fine in Detroit. I just don't buy it. I don't buy that when Ben Johnson took over, he greatly reduced DeAndre Swift's role, and then they traded him for pennies on the dollar. Maybe nickels on the dollar is a better accurate. Maybe it wasn't pennies, but nickels on the dollar to Philadelphia. So I don't buy that Ben Johnson is all in on DeAndre Swift. He needs a guy he likes that can go in between the tackles. That feels like Kyle Monangai to me right now. So an opportunity for Monangai, if he plays well, to start taking carries from Swift. But early on, I think we're going to see Swift. And of course, that leads us to Caleb Williams. And Caleb Williams kind of, as the offense as a whole, like I said, I think it's going to be a little slow. I don't think we're going to see 330 yards and 2 touchdowns out of Caleb Williams in week 1. I think maybe we see 220 yards and 1 touchdown, that kind of thing. I don't think it's going to be bad. I just don't think it's going to be outstanding. I think we're going to see Caleb growing throughout the season as he's getting coached up from Ben. But again, this offense, I think just give it a little more time to gel than where it is right now. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, I think the defense can do things really well out of the gate. Of course, the big question there is pass rush coming from the outside. I've already talked about it. I don't trust this pass rush room, and I think they need to worry about getting more edges probably in the draft, because now you're paying 2 guys, right? You're paying Montez Sweat $25 million. You're paying Odengbo $16 million. A lot of money already committed to that edge room. Do you want to go out and get another free agent? I don't know if they want to do that, but taking a first-round edge, to me, that makes a lot of sense. The rest of the defense, though, I think you have to like pretty much everything. Even with some of the injuries, even with Terrell Smith going down, I think you have to be happy with that starting 3 at corners. I like that Jalen Jones is back. I like what he can do. I like Josh Blackwell as a backup nickel. I think Jonathan Owens and Elijah Hicks are functional backup safeties, and you got to like Byard and Brisker as long as Brisker can stay on the field. The linebackers. Do I want to pay Tremaine Edmonds, $18 million a year? I sure don't, but he's here, and he's getting paid this year. So that's absolutely fine. He is a functional linebacker. TJ Edwards is a functional linebacker. That back 7 is as good as any back 7 in the league. It may not be the best, but it's up there. It's in the top 5, top 10 in the league in terms of back 7. I'm a big fan of this interior defensive line. And I think that we're going to see Dennis Allen really rotating these guys heavily. I don't think you're going to see Grady Jarrett or Javon Dexter out there for 80% of the snaps. I think you're not going to see anyone out there for more than about 60 to 65% of the snaps. These guys are going to be fresh in the 4th quarter. They're going to be fresh throughout the season, because you're going to see waves with Dexter and Jarrett and Billings and even Turner and Chris Williams and Odengbo's, sliding inside. You're going to see waves and waves in that interior. And I love that they're going to be able to do that. I just don't love the edge room, especially with Austin Booker hurt. I mean, they don't have a third edge. I don't care what Dennis Allen or Ben Johnson or Ryan Poles or anyone says. They don't have a third edge. To me, Daniel Hardy and Dominique Robinson are not NFL players. They're practice squad players. They're on an NFL roster right now, and they're going to get snaps. Tano, I guess, is probably going to be elevated from the practice squad. He'll get snaps. This is not good. This is a really bad situation. Odengbo was it's preseason. I get it. He was totally neutralized by Josh Simmons in that first quarter against the Chiefs. Josh Simmons, a rookie, mind you, first round rookie, but a rookie, totally neutralized him. Montez Sweat, he has to return to the 2023 form. Has to. If he doesn't, the Bears have no exterior pass rush coming in there. And Dennis Allen is going to have to do some work to get this team dialed up on some pressure. He's going to have to give different looks. But looking at the short term with Dennis Allen, he's got a back 7 he can rely on. That's going to be pretty sticky in coverage. He's got an interior that I think is going to be able to get some interior pressure and collapse the pocket when need be. He's just got to figure out how to dial up pressure from the outside. He does that. This defense is going to be able to step in and be good right away. They don't have to be great right away, but they will be good right away. And when you get to week 1 and you have, in essence, a rookie quarterback going against a smart, experienced defensive coordinator like Dennis Allen with enough talent on that field, I expect J.J. McCarthy to struggle week 1 against the Chicago Bears, even with someone like Kevin O'Connell calling the shots and training up J.J. McCarthy. So that's where I'm feeling this team is early. I think we're going to have to see the Bears rely on the defense a little more early as the offense gets their feet under them. But as this season progresses, I think it'll be more of a 50-50. And if all things go well by the end of the year, this is more of an offensive team, with a really good offense and a good defense, rather than a team that is relying on the defense to keep the scores a little closer. So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to get back here with David Kaplan of ESPN. This is Bill Zimmerman, Bears Banter. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back into the podcast. Excited to do this spot. We've had this gentleman on a couple times over the last few years, and he's nice enough to come back on. He's kind of the godfather of Chicago sports media at this point. He is David Kaplan, of course, ESPN 1000. He's got his YouTube channel, The Recap. That's REKAP, and he joins me now. David, Bill Zimmerman, how are you?
I am awesome, Bill. It's always an honor to be on with you, and we're back to football, and the Cubs, my team, are playing well. The Bears look like they should have a very competitive team. So, yeah, I'm in a good spot. How about you?
I'm feeling really good. This has been a really fun and exciting offseason, so I am ready for some regular season football. Before we jump in, though, like ESPN 1000, is your show moving, coming here in the near future?
It actually is. Thank you for asking. So tomorrow morning, it'll be an earlier wake up. Instead of 7 to 10, we are now moving to 6 to 9 a.m. It'll be me and Jonathan Hood and my guys Jay Moore and Shay Norling, and then Carmen and Yurko 9 to noon, leading into Rich Eisen. And then it's Black and Abdallah commercial free for an hour, 2 to 3, Waddle, Sylvie, 3 to 6:30. So same old names, different times. So I'm really excited. 6 a.m., that's the big boy league. So I'm excited.
Absolutely. It's a little tweak of the lineup. So good to know where everyone can catch the beginning of the show, and of course the meat of the show, Cap and Jay Hood. So let's just dive in. I don't want to waste any time. I want to dive in here. And I know, you've had a chance, you've talked to Ben Johnson this offseason. You've had a chance to really, have your pulse on this team. Let's start with Ben Johnson, because you followed this team, going way back, the last 30, 40 years. So you remember when Dave Wannstedt was hired, and Giron and Lovey and all these guys. So the hiring of Ben Johnson, in terms of excitement and confidence level before you ever saw them coach, where is that kind of course, your Chicago fandom and career in terms of some of these other coaches they've hired?
This is probably as good as it gets. When they hired John Fox, I called him the golden parachute, because he was an older coach getting one more big payday. So it didn't really do much for me. When they hired Lovey, and that was a good hire, I like a more passionate, more vibrant, charismatic coach. But he was a really good football coach. So that one worked out. When they hired Mark Trestman, I thought it was an absolute joke. I had to interview him the day he got hired, and I'm like, this is our coach? Okay. Hope you guys know what you're doing. Matt Nagy, it was fine. Came from the Chiefs. Whatever. The Eberflus hire, not my cup of tea. Sure, he's a good person, great husband, great father. He knows his X's and O's. That vanilla, I got to check the tape, and we just have to execute. But that's not me, and that's not my kind of coach. This dude, this guy is all about ball, but he is honest. You ask him a direct question, you're going to get a direct answer. And I sat with Kevin Byard, who works with me on my YouTube channel. He has his own show called Intercepted, where he intercepts one of his teammates. And I sat and did the first show. It was me and my partner, Ryan McGuffey, and Kevin. And we sat and talked, and I said, so tell me about this guy. He said, first of all, he and Dennis Allen are both intense. He called Dennis Allen militaristic. He said, this dude's out of his mind. He said, I love playing for him, but it's militaristic. And he said, with Ben, he does not let you slide that much, not an inch. And he'll call you out. And I was at training camp when Caleb couldn't get the cadence right, and guys aren't lined up correct, and Cole Kmet's supposed to be there, not there. And he said, okay, first team, out. And he said, I didn't throw them. We had him on the radio on ESPN 1000, and Hoodie asked him, did you throw the first team out? He said, let's get it clear. I did not throw them out of practice. I simply said, okay, second team, you get in and see if you can run it. And then I brought them back in. But Bayard, Tyson Bajan's been in our YouTube studio. He said, this dude is all what we needed. It is cleaning up the culture issues. For example, did you know that last year it was okay to bring your breakfast into meetings in the morning? Now, to some people, they're like, so you're eating your breakfast while you're at a meeting. Ben Johnson walked in and went, hold on a second. What's going on here with omelets and croissants? And get it out of here. We're here to work. You want to have a cup of coffee while you're talking? Okay, I'm cool. Put your breakfast outside and eat it when we're done, or get here 5 minutes earlier and eat it before we meet. We are here to work. And so that's what I think the culture needed. Now you got to win football games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's funny when we go back to January about the Ben Johnson discourse, and the whole thing came down to, and look, we've heard this all the time. It's always brought up with these coaches. The leader of men aspect. I was like, well, Aaron Glenn's a leader of men. Ben Johnson's just a guy who wants to sit in his office with a whiteboard and dial up plays. I don't know if he's going to be able to lead a locker room. And I think that's what I think has really been put to bed this offseason. And we're excited for the offense and all the other things he brings. But like you said, this is a no-nonsense guy. This is a guy that has a very high bar, and he expects everyone to meet it, exceed it, in fact. And I think that's exciting. And the other thing, and you brought up Dennis Allen, is, and not to pour cold water on his career, but this is a guy who's failed as a head coach twice. So if Ben Johnson is the guy we all hope he is offensively, and Dennis Allen can get back to how he was as a defensive coordinator, a great defensive coordinator that we all know, it feels like the potential to be kind of that Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo thing with the Chiefs, where Dennis Allen's not getting another head coaching job anytime soon, if not ever. And these two guys can work together for years and years.
Yeah, I think you make a very, very astute point that Dennis Allen's had 2 bites at the head coaching apple, and he's a great defensive coordinator. And they're paying him what some head coaches, the lower level head coaches, made maybe a year or 2 ago. He's a $5 million guy at least as a coordinator. So if you're Dennis Allen, unless you have this burning desire that I have got to find a way to be a head coach again, why wouldn't you just cash checks at that level, work for Ben Johnson in a great city on a roster that I think you would admit this offseason markedly improved this roster?
Yeah, really might. I mean, defense, they, a couple tweaks there with Grady Jarrett. This offense, I was actually looking at when that initial 53 came out, they've overturned 13 out of the 25 on the entire offensive depth. So more than half new faces on the offensive side of the ball. So let's jump on the offensive side of the ball, not bury the lead. Let's jump in with Caleb Williams. I know it's been an inconsistent training camp with him, but we know he's learning a new offense. Ben Johnson's throwing a lot on his table. We've seen some really, really good highs, but we've seen some inconsistent play there as well. Where were you with Caleb Williams at the end of last season, and your expectations now with Ben Johnson heading into year 2?
By the way, my dog he never barks, and he apparently loves talking Bears football because he's barking at me. Stanley, you gotta stop, man. Hang on 1 second.
What kind of dog?
I'll give you some laughs. Stanley, here. Take this. Okay? Here you go. You can
Stanley is interrupting us. I love it.
Yeah, the other 2 dogs are with my wife. I've got Stanley, and then I've got Maverick and Sparky. Stanley is the rescue dog that we have. The other 2 are purebreds. So anyway, let's get into this. You asked me about the offense and Caleb Williams and where I was at.
Yeah, Caleb, end of last year and now going into year 2.
So I was told by people in that building that the last 3 or 4 weeks, Caleb's process got sidetracked. He was basically had PTSD. I mean, you get sacked 68 times, that can happen 100%. So it wasn't that his work ethic changed. It was just get me to the end line, please. We're not going to the playoffs. I'm getting my head kicked in. And so I wasn't disappointed in him. I was disappointed in the situation he was put in. And I also thought, okay, you need to be better, Caleb. It is what it is, man. You got to fight through this, and through the toughest times, you have got to be really, really dialed in. And I thought maybe he lost some of that dialed inness, if that's a word, because of what was going on. 10-game losing streak, 3 different coordinators from Waldron to Thomas Brown to Thomas Brown's the interim, so they name in name only another offensive coordinator, and it's just a train wreck, and it was awful. I think Caleb Williams will go down as the greatest quarterback in Bears history. I've said that from day one, and now that Ben Johnson is here, I truly believe it. This kid can do spectacular things, but it's going to take time. Ben Johnson's offense is complex, and it takes getting the ball from the center and bam, there's my read, I'm going there. Or if I'm going through my progressions, if that pressure's coming, get rid of the football, man. And so I think he is showing growth. I think there will be some hiccups where we'll be like, can't hold the ball that long, like in the Kansas City game. He had one play like that.
Yep,
you
that
can't
sack was
fumble the
brutal.
opening snap on a handoff. Those things cannot happen. But in the end, I'm thrilled he's our quarterback.
Yeah, no, I think it's tons of positive. I've been excited about the potential for Caleb Williams. When the Panthers were out to that brutal start, they were 1-9, 1-10, whatever they were. I was already getting excited at that point. So I'm right there with you, and I'm right there with the ceiling as well. And I think the one thing that, yes, Ben Johnson's offense is complicated, and yes, there's going to be some growing pains in the regular season. And we're not just going to see Caleb step in and throw for 4,600 yards and 40 touchdowns. There's going to be some bumps along the way. But the one thing, and this isn't just coming from me, this is coming from those X's and O's tape grinders that do the tape, the Brian Baldingers and the Dan Orlovskis and those guys. With Shane Waldron's offense and then Thomas Brown and everything moving forward, the lack of easy buttons, the lack of safety valves, the lack of things that all quarterbacks need, but especially rookie quarterbacks need, that just wasn't there for him. And I think you're right. I think he tried to trust that protection early on, like that Texans game where he was getting pummeled, but he stood in the pocket there. Then towards the end of the season, the feet got happy, started bailing out early where he's just like, the protection's not going to be there.
That's the PTSD I'm talking about.
Absolutely. So I think while Ben Johnson, there's going to be some growing pains, there's also going to be a lot more easy button plays that are going to get Caleb and the offense on track early. And it was just missing. I mean, how many times was it just punting on the first series of the game for the Bears? I think we're going to see definitely a lot more of a cohesive offense this year.
Yeah, I fully expect that. And there are going to be days where we're going to look over at Ben Johnson and he's going to be like, what are we doing here? That's going to happen, and that's okay. As you learn, you're a second-year quarterback. Those mistakes are not going to all be corrected because Ben Johnson's the head coach. But I do think the plan will be better, and I do expect them to win. I picked them 10-7. If you said they went 9-8, okay.
Yeah.
If you said they went 11-6, surprisingly, really, really good. If you told me they go 6-11, 5-12, 7-10, I'll be really ticked off and really surprised.
Yeah, I would be as well. So let me ask you about this. Now, this is an old story, but I have a feeling with the Vikings coming up here, this is going to recirculate a little bit. And that is the Seth Wickersham book and the excerpts about Caleb Williams and wanting to go to the Vikings and, early on in the process, and Carl Williams not wanting him to go to the Bears. We saw all the excerpts from Seth Wickersham. What did you think about Caleb and Carl talking to Seth, and kind of what did you think about some of those quotes? Because, like I look at it and say, if you got the chance to sit down with Kevin O'Connell as a draft prospect, of course you'd be excited to play for Kevin O'Connell.
Look, he's a hell of a football coach. He is. The amazing thing to me is Kevin O'Connell has shown you that he's a great developer of offensive football and quarterbacks. Why did the Bears not interview him when they hired Matt Eberflus?
Yeah. Bruce Arians. Yeah, we know the list.
Well, at least they brought Bruce Arians in.
Right.
When Ryan Poles got hired, they literally handed him a list that said, here's 3 guys. We interviewed these 3 guys. You should look at these 3.
Jim Caldwell, Matt Eberflus, and Dan Quinn.
That is correct. And then not only did they have those 3 come in, but they really liked Eberflus. I cannot believe Ryan Poles would have hired him if he hadn't been given a list and said, here's 3 guys for you. I can't believe that.
And the Bill Polian aspect, the Trace Armstrong aspect, I mean, you know he was getting pulled in those directions.
Yeah, and it would stun me if Ryan Poles had the ability to fire him a year ago. I don't believe he did. I still can't believe the Bears would have eaten 3 years of money. That's one. 2, in terms of Ben Johnson, I've been told by someone this close to Ben, I mean super close, he was not taking any job last year, even if they had fired Eberflus. So maybe in the end, all the pain we all went through, including Caleb's physical pain, it worked out because I don't know who the head coach would be.
Yeah, let's we have our fingers crossed that it did. So let me ask you about a few other positions here before I let you go. Let's stick with the offensive side of the ball. Let's start with the line. You know, you talked about how much they improved this roster. Obviously, 3 new guys across the interior. Braxton Jones is the one position right now I think a lot of Bears fans are concerned about based on how he's looked in preseason. You know, he looks like his legs look skinny. Looks like he hasn't really fully recovered from that injury. How confident are you in the offensive line as a whole? And you know, let's really focus on Braxton Jones because that's the big question mark right now.
He's got to be a better player, Bill, with Joe Tooney standing next to him and Drew Dahlman standing next to Joe and Jonah Jackson standing next to him and Darnell Wright standing next to him. You would think everything would be better. Now, look, when you face Micah Parsons or you face some of the exotic blitz schemes that we're going to see week 1 from Brian Flores, or you face whoever it is on the edge in some of these games you're going to play, then here's the deal. Then you have to use a back to chip. You have to go 2 tight ends. You've got to help protect. But Braxton Jones has to be able to do his job, period. I'm assuming he's the starter. Do your job. That's it. And if you have to help a little bit, help a little bit. You cannot let one guy wreck a game against you.
Yeah, and I do think Ben Johnson and Dan Rochar will do the necessary things. This won't be the Matt Nagy, Cleveland Browns, Justin Fields debacle. Like there will be help if Braxton still needs it. At least fingers crossed. I expect it. Let me ask you about the weapons because I love this weapon room. We're talking the top 4 receivers and the top 2 tight ends. I think, you know, the ability to do 12 personnel, 11 personnel, empty backfield, 4 wide receiver sets, the amount of flexibility. That's what I'm excited about. When you got a offensive mind like Ben Johnson, and you heard guys like, oh, well, he doesn't need 2 good pass catching tight ends. Look at what he did in Detroit. Yeah, but now he has 2 pass catching tight ends. I think the flexibility that this unit, these 6 players are going to give him offensively is he's going to be able to throw waves of different looks at defenses.
Yeah, and one thing I would tell you is, yes, they can both catch passes, but they're both radically different types of players. Like, I think Cole Kmet. I was going to say, they just flashed Cade Horton on the TV here. Cole Kmet can catch the ball, can make people miss, but he's not Travis Kelce, George Kittle. He's an excellent, excellent blocker for a tight end. Colston Loveland gets painted as he's a wide receiver in a tight end's body, but that we got to see him block at the NFL level, and I think he's a better blocker than he gets credit for. So you have one guy who gets less credit as a receiver and more as a blocker, and the other guy gets more credit as a receiver and less as a blocker. So you have 2 kind of hybrid tight ends, and I think Colston Loveland is going to be a hell of a football player, a hell of a player. Now, the big question is, maybe you can answer this one. If the kid from Texas, the left tackle, had been available at 10, he went pick 9.
Kelvin Banks.
if Kelvin Banks had been available, what do the Bears do? Because I know Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles, but especially Ben Johnson, wanted Colston Loveland. The Rams tried desperately to move up to get in front of the Bears. And then if the Bears had taken somebody else, the Rams were zooming up to 11, 12, somewhere before the Colts so they could get Colston Loveland. That was the guy Sean McVay wanted. So my question is, if Kelvin Banks is there, he's a plug-and-play starter on day one. Do they take him, or were they wedded to Colston Loveland? I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that, but it's one I thought about in the spring, and I am curious. So let's jump over to the defensive side of the ball. And look, I think the back seven is solid. I think the interior defensive line is great. I love the depth they have there. Cap, I am really worried about this edge room, especially with Austin Booker on IR. I don't know if Dio is a great pass rusher. I know the Bears paid him to what he could be, not necessarily what he was in Indianapolis. Montez Sweat, we really need to see the 2023 version. I know he was banged up in 2024, but if we get the 2024 version this year, I am really concerned about them being able. Now, look, I know Dennis Allen is creative. He stunts, twists. He's going to do what he needs to do to get pressure. But I am really worried if the Bears are just rushing four, that they're going to be able to get the pressure they need from the outside.
Don't disagree with you. Dio Odengbo has got to play better than we saw in the preseason.
He got beat by Josh Simmons, and I think it's preseason, but Josh Simmons totally handled him. Rookie.
He did. He looked like they were doing the Texas two-step, and it was. And I'm like, wait, whoa! That guy got $48 million. I need to see more. So let's find out what they do the first week against Darisaw and all these guys up on the Vikings line. They overhauled their interior just like the Bears did. So it's going to be interesting to see what we see. You're right. Dennis Allen will use stunts and twists and this and that and get exotic if he has to. But the back end of that defense, if Jalen Johnson's healthy and if Kyler Gordon's healthy, and I love Kevin Byard and Jaquan Brisker together, you have a chance to have one of the better defensive backfields in the National Football League. But those guys can't cover for 5 seconds. They just can't. You got to get pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see what he can accomplish with that edge group. So last one for you. And then just a quick prediction on the Monday night game. Got to ask you, Micah Parsons is a Green Bay Packer. These rumors were circulating for a few days, and I just had to, no way. Like this is all the Jerry Jones soap opera. There's no way they're going to do this. And of all teams, he ends up on the Green Bay Packers, not in the AFC, like Khalil Mack got moved to the NFC, the kind of things that, Jerry Jones is just going to do what Jerry Jones does. It's brutal. If you're going to ask me, you're getting Brian Flores two games a year. You're getting Micah Parsons 2 games a year. You're getting Aiden Hutchinson 2 games a year. That is a rough spot to be in for the Chicago Bears.
It is, but let me ask you a question. How many games have the Dallas Cowboys won in the postseason with Micah Parsons and Diggs and all the talent that they have on that team? Don't disagree. He's a phenomenal football player. Find a way, man. Find a way.
They got to.
Period.
Yeah. Yeah. Nope. It's going to make, games a little more nerve-wracking there, but yeah, absolutely. You got to be the best. You got to beat the best, right? So that's exactly what's going to happen. So last thing before I let you go, Cap, Monday Night Football, Bears, Vikings, of course, JJ McCarthy's first NFL start. Brian Flores, Ben Johnson seems to have his number. Caleb Williams looked good against the Flores defense last year. Are you feeling confident that the Bears can bring this one home?
Yeah, I do think they will win. In fact, I'll be disappointed if they don't win. It's the first game for J.J. McCarthy. That's a big deal to have 2 knee surgeries and miss your entire rookie year of development. He's a very smart football player. With no Jordan Addison, and Justin Jefferson has had some hamstring issues throughout training camp. I think the Bears win the football game, and I have it like 24-17, 24-21, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, you got to figure it's going to be a 1-score game. The Vikings are a really good football team. So there he is, David Kaplan, of course, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Chicago time on ESPN 1000. Make sure you note the new time. And, of course, the recap, REKAP on YouTube. Cap, thanks for so much time. Really enjoyed the interview. And let's hope we are talking about a really good football team all season long.
I hope so. You got my number, so make sure we stay in touch. Get me back. Bill Zimmerman, you're the man.
Thanks, Cap. All right, there he is, David Kaplan. Always a good interview with Cap. Plenty of energy, plenty of information, plenty of opinion. David Kaplan. So again, make sure you keep in mind his show is now 1 hour earlier with the new lineup with Rich Eisen getting into the mix there. Cap and Jay Hood now on 6 to 9 a.m. Chicago time. So let's jump into the mailbag, give you a Vikings Bears prediction at the end here. Let's get through these as quickly as we can so we can get to as many as we can. We'll start with Captain CB. Who needs to have a better season to prove their worth, Montez Sweat or Dio Odengbo? I think it's Sweat. I think it's pretty easy. Dio's going to be here for 2 years. May not be here for the third year of that contract if it doesn't work out, but he's here next year no matter what. Montez Sweat, I don't have the exact contract details in front of me, but assuming if Sweat isn't here in 2026, it's because he was traded. If you trade Montez Sweat and you do it after June, you do it a post June 1st designation. Again, you can trade him before June 1st, but you have to designate it a post June 1st designation. I think what it is you get $4 million dead in 2026 and 2027, and then you save the $21 million on the cap. So the Bears have a movable contract in Montez Sweat after this season. And again, if you have that situation where you've been able to move Sweat off the books for $21 million, you can save a lot of cap space, but also that contract becomes pretty sexy for an opposing, for another team. If you get Montez Sweat at 2 years and $42 million and only have basically the first season of that guaranteed for an incoming team, there's going to be teams interested in Montez Sweat. I don't know what kind of return you're going to be able to get on him if he doesn't have a particularly good year, because if he has a good year, obviously you're going to want to keep Sweat around. So to me, Sweat makes more money. Sweat's the movable contract. Sweat is not a Dennis Allen guy. He was brought in. Again, and I've said this multiple times, you look at this as a new regime. I know Ryan Poles is still here, but guys brought in before Ben Johnson was here, you should consider the old regime. I think we're going to see significant turnover. I know we didn't see much on the defense this year because the defense is already established in most spots. I think you're going to see safety and linebackers start to turn over. We've already seen them infuse new talent in the defensive line with Jarrett and Turner and Odengbo. I think you're going to start seeing this defense turn over a pretty good amount over the next couple of years. They'll keep a couple guys around. Obviously, they committed to Kyler Gordon, that kind of thing. But we'll see some turnover with this defense over the next couple of years. And are we trusting this D-line rotation? Behind Dio and Sweat, we have Hardy and Domrob, who have combined 2 sacks in 3 seasons. Booker's on IR. I don't get the logic behind it. Well, I'll say this, NR. When you say D-line rotation, you have to trust the interior D-line rotation. I talked about it earlier. You like that a lot. But the edge, I agree with you, is a disaster. I do not trust this rotation. I want Sweat and Odengbo playing 90% of the snaps. I don't want Hardy and Domrob on the field. They can't play. Hardy's okay. He's a pretty good special teamer. He should be your 5th defensive end. Austin Booker, depending, is your 3rd or 4th defensive end, and then you need another guy as good or better than Booker to be in the rotation, and that's not Tano. That's certainly not Dominique Robinson. So, no, this is really bad. I am really surprised they did not add someone. I think that just means they're really high on Booker, and just unfortunate that he's on the IR the first 4 games of the season. So this is going to look really thin in September. It is not going to look great unless Sweat and Dio can eat a big chunk of the snaps and look good doing it. I think you're going to see a problem there. But at the same time, I think if Booker comes in and Booker plays really well, where you can get Sweat and Odengbo's snaps down to about 70 to 75%, Booker can play about 50% of the snaps to 60% of the snaps, and whatever that 5-10% left can be filled in by the other guys. That'll put you in decent shape. But this all hinges on Austin Booker making a huge, huge step forward this year. And it's not going to be in the month of September. So yes, certainly some areas to pause right there. That is without question the biggest question mark on this team. What is the true floor and ceiling of this season's win total, says RT Pete. Pete, I think 8 wins is the floor and 11 wins is the ceiling. I think that's fair. If we're below 8 wins, if the Chicago Bears are at 7-10, 6-11, something went wrong. Caleb got hurt. Ben Johnson is not the guy we think he is. I have now again, the schedule's tough, but if this team can't eke out 8 wins, we have problems. This has to start moving in the right direction. Last season was supposed to be the big breakout season, and they won 5 games. So at some point, either this has to work or it has to collapse. So I think that's the floor. And then the ceiling, this is a tough schedule. Micah Parsons is now in the NFC North. I can't see this team going on some crazy 12, 13, 14 wins. So 8-11 to me, Pete, that is the window. Ed Helinsky, what are you liking and disliking about the Bears roster right now? I've kind of talked about it already, Ed. Edge room. Do not like the edge room. Major problems there. And there is plenty to like. I like the defensive tackle room. I like the weapons. If you want me to pick one thing, I'll pick one thing. The weapons that Caleb Williams has to throw to. Top 4 receivers, the top 2 tight ends, and DeAndre Swift. He's got 7 legitimate receiving threats. Juan, how do we feel about Poles, considering that we started the 2025 draft with the big needs at edge, left tackle, defensive tackle, and next year we have the same needs, except hopefully change DT for safety? Juan, I'm on the fence and probably on the wrong side of the fence with Ryan Poles. I've said it many times. He does things well. He gets great contracts out of his guys when he retains his guys, gets very team-friendly deals, manages the cap really well. He knows how to construct a team. He's got a good process there. He usually trades back more than he trades up, gives him an opportunity for more bites at the apple in the draft. I think his draft assessment is poor. I think his free agent assessment is mediocre. And I think in the end, talent and deciding, assessing talent and deciding who you're going to pay, who you're going to keep, and who you're going to bring in as free agents, who you're going to draft, that's really the bulk of a GM's duties. And I have big concerns about his assessment, especially outside of the top, 60 picks, in each draft. I just don't think you can trust him. I don't think we've seen enough hits. I know people will argue with me, and King Poles does it again, and they'll, live for Ryan Poles to the death. But at the same time, Juan, I'll say this: what the hell's the difference? He got an extension. He's here. Hopefully, Ben Johnson, who I do think, if I had to say what is the control power with the Bears between Poles and Johnson, Ben Johnson is more than 50% and Ryan Poles is less than 50%. That's my opinion. I don't know that for certain. It's a working relationship, but I think Ben has plenty of power. Let's move to Susnick. What is your boldest prediction for this season that you feel is going to happen, both good or bad? All right. How about this? Bold, good prediction. The Bears have a 4,000-yard passer. We will go with that. Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson will figure it out. Go north of 4,000 yards passing. A bold, negative prediction. No one on the Bears has 10 sacks. How about that? Montez Sweat is your leader with sacks at like 7.5. Dio only gets 3 or 4 sacks. The rest of it is going to come from interior pressure and from blitzes. The Bears pass rush will not be what it needs to be, especially coming from the outside. Brett Murphy, are they making Trapillo the swing tackle? Also the lack of quality. You're all talking about edge. I can't blame you. The quality defensive ends going to hold this team back from being a 10-win team. Dio is underwhelming, and Sweat is a max 10-sack guy. Brett, I said this earlier. I think Trapillo is the backup right tackle, and Theo Benedict is the backup left tackle. Now, again, it could be that Darnell Wright swings over to left tackle if something happens to Braxton Jones, and Trapillo starts at right tackle. But I don't think we have a swing on this roster who's going to back up at both left tackle and right tackle. And yeah, edge sucks. We've talked about it multiple times. I don't need to go through it again. Big concerns there at edge. Jason Black, talk me off the ledge with the edge room with Booker on IR. Tell me how this is going to work. It's going to work, Jason, through Dennis Allen. That's twists, stunts, blitzes. Dennis Allen creates pressure. He understands, I think, as a really good defensive coordinator, that he doesn't have the guys he needs to get pressure off the edge. So he's going to figure out ways to do it. If he's only going to rush 4, It better not just be 4 straight up. He's going to have to do some interesting things with stunts and twists. We'll see exactly what he does here on the defensive side of the ball to create pressure. But bottom line here is they don't have the horses right now. Joe Tucio, do you think the possibility is real to have Wright move to left tackle, or is that more of an in case of emergency move? Joe, I think it's an in case of emergency move this year, but it may be more of a permanent move next year. And then they see, is Darnell Wright good enough at left tackle to pay? And then they can have a cheap right tackle in Trapillo. I think that might be where the Bears end up going, because they don't have left tackle solved for 2026. And I certainly don't think they're going to pay Braxton Jones. JK99, does Gervon Dexter fit more of a defensive end in Dennis Allen's system? I do think we might see him bounce out there, but I don't think it's going to be a permanent role. I think that's one of those things. Maybe Dio will bounce inside sometimes and Dexter will bounce outside sometimes. Allen likes to throw a lot of different fronts at you. He likes to move guys around. So, I mean, Andrew Billings obviously isn't going to bounce out on the outside, but a guy like Dexter absolutely could. So I do think that's fair to expect that, but I don't think you're going to see Dexter out there exclusively, but I will not be surprised if you see Dexter out there multiple times a game, every game. All right, and let's finish with Sad Vols fan. Will DJ Moore be our most productive player out of the backfield? No, that's going to be DeAndre Swift. You guys know I'm not a big Swift supporter. I didn't like the signing. It was what it was last season. That was a Shane Waldron pick because Shane Waldron wanted to beef up the running back room, and Swift's still here. Shane Waldron didn't even make it through the season, but no. DJ Moore, I think, might be a little bit of a gimmick guy. I don't think it's going to be a Deebo Samuel thing where he's getting 8-10 carries a game or anything like that out there. I think they're going to move DJ Moore around. I think with the running back room being a little thin right now, we will see him get some shots in the backfield. But at the same time, most productive player, no. I don't think we're going to see anything about that. There are a couple more questions about edge, but I'm going to skip those because I don't want to be too redundant. We all agree this edge room is a problem. All right, let's move to the Vikings game, give you a quick prediction here, and we will sign off for the week. I do like the Bears to win this game. I said it last week with Aaron Lemming. David Kaplan said it just 15 minutes ago. The Chicago Bears are playing, in essence, a rookie quarterback against Dennis Allen. To me, that is the number one reason why I think the Chicago Bears win this football game. I do not think it's because Ben Johnson owes Brian Flores. I do not think it's because Caleb Williams looked pretty good against Brian Flores last year. I think I look at this defensively and think that with the Jordan Addison issue, I think with Justin Jefferson and his hamstrings, I think with J.J. McCarthy, in essence, being a rookie quarterback, his first NFL start, I think the Vikings offense may sputter a little bit against the Bears, and I think the Bears win this one, but I think it's a little uglier and a little bit more low scoring than a lot of people are expecting. It's going to be close too. This is a 1-score game, going to come down to the fourth quarter, anybody's game, but that home field advantage situation and J.J. McCarthy having his first shot against a first-team defense and live bullets, I think this becomes a Chicago Bears victory. I'm going to call this one 19-17. Not pretty, but enough to get the Bears in the win column. We'll call it 19-17, a Chicago Bears victory. That's all you need in week 1 is get that victory, get on the right side of the ledger. That's going to do it for Bears Banter. Again, we will be back all week. And also make sure you check out the Saturday releases we're going to be doing this year, hopefully every week. Obviously, that's going to depend on guests because this is going to be a guest-heavy series, but 85 at 40, the 40th anniversary of the Chicago Bears. First episode is coming out this Saturday. Make sure you check that out and look for them moving forward on the Second City Gridiron podcast feed, where, of course, you can get all the Jacob Infante post-game show. You'll be able to get Bear and Balanced and Taylor's preview shows and Mason's breaking bare bones, not breaking bones, Bare Bones with Mason, and of course our new additions, the Mac and Reed podcast, middle of the week. And we've also, of course, got Bears Over Beers returning from the last several seasons. So there is content coming in every day. So, now, again, when the Bears play Sunday, the Sunday post-game show, the Monday with Jeff and Lester, Tuesday is going to be Mac and Reed, Wednesday is going to be Bears Over Beers, Thursday is going to be Bare Bones, Friday is going to be Taylor, Saturday is going to be 85 at 40, and you got my podcast coming to the feed as well. You know, I don't do the live ones because my show is guest dependent, so I record with the guests. And then, of course, we pop that up on the YouTube channel, Second City Gridiron YouTube. Make sure you subscribe there. And, of course, make sure you subscribe to Second City Gridiron podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, wherever, we are there. So that's going to do it for Bears Banter. We will talk to you next week. Bear down, everybody. Talk to you soon. Adios.